to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company Window Works from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Today is a What Would Lou Do show. I have to just tell you before we get started, I was at High Point recently, and many of you have come up and told me how the What Would Lou Do shows are your favorite shows. And that's pretty cool. I thought that was really awesome to hear, so thank you for sharing that with me. Before I read you today's What Would Lou Do question, I want to remind you that Lou University is open. Registration is open and classes are starting next week. If you're listening in real time, they start the week of April 17th, 2022. These are live taught classes. Okay, so you show up via technology. We use WebEx. It's just like Zoom, but you show up and they're live taught. Okay. They're either live taught by your interior design peers who I know have clear and demonstrable skills in their superpowers, or they are taught by our Power Talk Friday expert consultants. Okay. So these classes meet live every week for 6 weeks. We also have a private message forum where you can ask questions of your peers and your faculty between the classes. And your entire team can attend the classes with you. You also have all of the recordings to go back over and over for refreshers and enhanced learning, okay? And also for when you bring on new hires. Go to LuAnnUniversity.com to learn more about all of these fantastic classes that we have lined up for you this semester. All right, LuAnnUniversity.com. Now, here's today's question. Hi, LuAnn. I'm an interior design professional and a longtime listener. I'm writing to you today because I have a sticky and very frustrating situation with a builder and a homeowner, and it's my biggest project to date. The project is a new build out of state, a lake house that will function as a vacation home for a young couple. We are knocking down an existing structure and building from the ground up, and then doing a full furnishing and accessory package as well. So I'm just saying high five to you on such a nice project, right? And she continues, on top of that, my clients are awesome, and they're looking for a space that's very cool and out of the box. We are a great fit, and this would be my dream project if it weren't for the builder. She says they had secured the builder before they brought me on, but we're still in the very early stages of the project. I reached out to him and his project manager back in November and asked to set up a brief Zoom meeting so we can make introductions and discuss some project details. He wrote back to me less than 24 hours later and asked me to send some dates that would work. Then he ghosted. I followed up with phone calls and emails every few days and did not hear anything until December 15th, a month later, when he responded to an email I had sent to the architect. Nothing has happened on the build site yet. Supposedly, we are still waiting for the new septic plans to be approved. The homeowners want to make some minor changes to the plans before the build begins, and they would like to salvage the wood from the existing house. Things that the builder needs to know about soon before he begins knocking the house down. Things that would be very easy to talk through on a brief Zoom call. He has not been good about following up with the homeowners either, and I can sense their anxiety building. In order to get in touch with him, they've had to call every single person in his office until someone could track him down. Then he tells them that they are still waiting because more issues have come up. Then it'll be another month, and then radio silence. Okay, this isn't sounding good, is it? On my end, I have continued to call and email the builder, and it has now been 3 months without a single correspondence from him. She says, I want to maintain a high level of professionalism. and I don't want to jump ship on my clients. The project is incredibly lucrative and has a lot of design freedom. But boy, oh boy, would it feel good to just leave this guy a ranting voicemail message in all inside voice, right? And I am concerned for my clients and their vision for this dream vacation home with the level of commitment this builder seems to have. I feel responsible for helping them to achieve their design goals, but I'm concerned that the success of this project is at stake with the builder who can't even answer simple questions like, who is your preferred cabinet supplier? Bad communication is one thing, but no communication? I've never experienced this before. I need to be able to reach out to a builder and get my questions answered, especially on a project that's 1.5 hours away. If we can't rely on each other to be good trade partners, then I fear the success of the project is in jeopardy. I don't want to put my name on a builder grade. Do you know what I'm saying? She says, additionally, with lead times being longer than normal, it's at the point where we need to have answers so we can place orders and get things in time. Plus, I have a business to run and I'm working on a number of other projects, and it feels like this dude is holding my time hostage. I don't have the time or patience, frankly, to continue to chase this guy down. I was going to reach out to the homeowners and have an honest and transparent conversation with them about my concerns and be blunt about the delays and cost increases they can expect if things continue like this. But before I did that, I wanted to reach out and ask you, what the heck would Lou do? All right, so this is a tricky situation to be sure, right? And it's a miserable one, and I feel for you, and you must be incredibly frustrated. I'm frustrated for you. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back and pick out, like I always do, pick out some of the key parts, and I'll reread the little section that relates to it and then give you my 2 cents on each of these areas, okay? So the first one, you said, he wrote back to me less than 24 hours later and asked me to send some dates that would work. And I'm just going to say here, it goes without saying that you gave him dates yet. So I'm just going to put that out there. Okay. Then you said he ghosted. I followed up with phone calls and emails every few days and didn't hear anything until an entire month later when he responded to an email that you sent the architect. Okay. And I'm just going to say here, is there any chance that you were at your desk when this came in? Right? If it was at all possible that you could have possibly called him at this exact moment, just on the outside chance, thinking he just sent an email and maybe he would answer the phone. Okay. Now, this is water under the bridge. Okay? It's nothing you can do now, but I'm just in the future. You're waiting for somebody to call. There comes the email. I might have just dialed at that moment. Okay. And this also has nothing to do with this situation, but it's just like a by the way. A lot of times, too, what we'll do is, now he didn't come in and answer this designer. He came in and answered the architect. But another thing that sort of happens in this situation a lot when you're trying to get information out of somebody is they answer an email, but the email has 2 or 3 questions or 2 or 3 elements that need to be addressed, and the person chooses to address the ones they want and not the others. So as a completely having nothing to do with this, but it reminded me that it sometimes is a similar situation. When you need a specific answer on somebody that it's very difficult to get information from, you ask them that one specific thing in the email, the text, or the phone call. You don't give them the choice to answer what they want. Okay, that has nothing to do with this, just my 2 cents. All right, third thing I wanted to talk about. You said he's not been good about following up with the homeowners either, and you can sense their anxiety building. In order to get in touch with them, they have to run around in circles, and then he goes radio silence on them too. And I want to say about this that it's unfortunate, but there's no question that this is a them problem, not a you problem. And I really want to make sure that you have not made it a you problem. In this situation, you are Switzerland. You're empathetic, you're compassionate, but you didn't hire him. You're not in charge of him, and he is their problem. And as info, I just want to say, in my opinion, this is a situation where I can complain about my kids, but if you want to live to see tomorrow, don't you complain about them, right? And so what I mean by this is, anytime if they happen to complain about him to you, you nod, you acknowledge the trouble that this is by saying things like, I can see how frustrating this is for you. I'm so dismayed that a professional is handling like this. What do you plan to do? You see, What do you plan to do? You let them do the heavy complaining. And I might add, I know how much this means to you to salvage the wood, etc. And as you know, I've also tried to reach out in an effort to be proactive and to be helpful to you. But you should know he's not responded to me at all. So my advice is, if you personally have not received any confirmation from him on things like that, which is important, whether you think I've communicated it or not, which I have, please don't assume that he's gotten that information, because he's not responding to me. And I need you to know that, you're the point person, right? In order to protect your interests and make sure that your wishes are carried out, you are the final say in confirmation that he has the information. Do we agree on that? Okay. And then wait for the yes. If they say, well, I thought you would handle this XYZ, now you have to explain to them whether I would have or not is clearly no longer relevant. You hired him. He knows he's in contract with you, and he's not even communicating with you. How can either of us think that he will, out of nowhere, at this point, start any type of meaningful communication with me? You're the only one with leverage here. And I would say, however, in my experience, yes, professionals work together on behalf of their mutual client. Builders, architects, designers, landscape architects, we all often are hired separately by you, the client, but then we all work together in your interest. We have this, let's play nicely in the sandbox mentality. But in this case, you hired him and he's dropping the ball with you. I think it would be foolish and risky to think he will acknowledge or act on any information that I relay to him. So my advice is, until and if things change with him, protect yourself and be certain to be clear with all details, like the wood you want to salvage and anything else you want him to know. Okay? Because the thing is, your job isn't to be worried for the customer in staying up at night. Your job is to just make sure that your client knows that they're the only one with leverage. They probably paid him money and he's not answering them. So you're professional, you're sympathetic, but you're stating the facts, right? Because we're not getting down in the weeds of bashing him and being on the pity train. Because what happens is people, if you were to be the one bashing, it's like I said, I can complain about my kids, but don't you? If you're bashing too, now they might start to feel like they have to defend him because they did hire him. So Switzerland, all right? Now, number 4, on my end, I have continued to call and email the builder, and it's now been 3 months without any correspondence from him. Okay. For me, I'm just wondering, why is he handling it like this? All right. He answered the architect. Okay. If we put aside for a moment thinking he's just unorganized, unprofessional, pain in the you-know-what, because here's the thing. These clients did hire him. He must have come recommended or worked with them before. They had some reason to think he was reliable and worthy of their hard-earned money, right? So when I think about this and I look at this, I'm looking for what other possible reasons could be for this guy doing this. And I wonder, when the clients hired you, did they officially introduce the two of you? Did the homeowners establish everyone's position in the project? Did they explain to him your role and what you would be involved in and what decisions that they wanted you included on? Because he answered the architect. Why did he answer the architect? He may be thinking, I'm not checking out things with the designer. I'm already getting things done by committee now between the homeowner, the architect, and everybody else. He might be thinking there's too many cooks in the kitchen. And since he's not been instructed to deal with you, he might be passively aggressively going through you. And it's just a thought. I have no idea if that's the case here or not. But it is a good practice for the future, for all of you listening to me, that when the client has hired anyone outside of you, when you sign on, you must respectfully insist on an email introduction, Zoom intro, or best an in-person intro. Okay, because in this situation, we're talking about when the client is the ringleader in the hiring of the trades. Okay, I know that's not the ideal model. I know that many of you don't do this, but I also know that many of you still do projects in this way because it's just where you are in your journey right now. Okay. But even if that's where you are on your journey right now, before you sign on the dotted line with your client, you have to say, I'm going to need you to introduce all the parties who will interact and establish, and so that we can establish communication flow and method. All right. Now, one day, if you are not at this point yet, ideally this will be you as the designer, meaning you get hired, then you bring in your GC and everybody else, okay? So then you don't need this step because it's all your, circus. So you're the ringleader. But if you find yourself in the place where the client is doing the hiring, you at minimum need the communication hierarchy and methodology established. I would ask for things like all text and phone calls are followed up with email documentation. All communication is answered within 24 hours. And I would add, if something is legit time critical and 24 hours is too long to wait, then the communication is marked SOS. So all parties know this is not a casual question or status update. And I'm sure you can think of other things that should be within this agreement and established at the onset. So just make a list of them and put them in. All right. So this is, again, water under the bridge, but for me, I'm always saying, like, how do I wind it back so this doesn't happen again? In the future, you would wind this back by saying, oh, that's great. That's your GC. Let's have a meeting. And that client has that meeting and that builder comes to that meeting. And all of you right there together establish the communication flow from who to who and the methodology. I want to maintain a high level of professionalism and I don't want to jump ship on my clients. The project is incredibly lucrative, but boy, oh boy, would it feel good to just leave this guy a ranting voicemail message. I'm concerned for my clients and their vision for their dream vacation home. So I'm going to tell you, do what I do. I drive down the road ranting and raging to myself like a lunatic when I'm mad at someone. Let it out, then go to a yoga class, right? They are grown-ups and they paid the guy a deposit or at minimum signed a contract with them. So he is their problem. Technically, you have absolutely no skin in this game in order to impact his behavior. Truly, it's clear, right? So I get that you're upset. So run down the road, ranting and screaming, shouting an inside voice all day long. Get it out of your system. All right. Now, number 6, if we can't rely on each other to be good trade partners, then I fear the success of the project is in jeopardy and I don't want to put my name on builder grade. So, and you say, you know what I'm saying. And I actually am saying, no, I don't understand what you're saying. Like, legitimate, I don't. I'm not trying to be flip. I actually don't get why. Why will this be builder grade all of a sudden? So your clients want a custom bill. And are you saying that because he's not answering them, he's going to go build whatever he wants? I really am curious if I'm missing a nuance here on why you think it would be builder grade. Because at some point, the house is going to be built. These people have hired him, and I don't know. It just sounds like you're thinking he's going to go off the reservation and build whatever he wants without any communication from anybody, but I don't know how that could happen. So I'm really not getting it, and I'm willing to be schooled. So you can email me again if you want. All right. Number 7, additionally, with lead times being longer than normal, it's at the point where we need to have answers so we can place orders and get things on time. And I'm just going to say, correction, they need to have answers. They need him, not you. Okay. Number 8, plus I have a business to run and I'm working on a number of other projects and I feel like this dude is holding my time hostage. So I'm going to say, don't let him. Either do what you can and leave off what you can't, or explain to the client the timeline you need between the two of you to come to an agreement you can all live with, right? They might need to face the music and hire another contractor. They may need to get him in line, but then they have to also understand, but that by the time that they do that, you might need a delay in starting depending on when he surfaces. So I would say you sit down with them, the client, lay out the timeline and the consequences and things like, in order for you to be ready for XYZ stage by this date, these certain things must be completed by this time. And from the time he gets back on board and starts communicating and gets answers going, I'm going to need X amount of time after that, right? So, for example, at WindowWorks, if we had a nickel for every time a designer said to us at WindowWorks, we need this job installed on May 1st and it's February 1st, but we're literally at the very first site visit, I then say, well, I need 8 weeks. So let's back it up. May 1st, back it up 4 weeks, April 1st, March 1st. And then I say, that means that you, not me, you have 4 weeks to decide which fabrics, trims, styles that you're doing. All deposits have to be in, and all fabrics and trims and shade selections need to be to me within the next 4 weeks, because that gives me 8 weeks. This is all pre-COVID, by the way. All bets are off now, right? But you understand what I'm saying. And what I say is, does this sound possible given where you are now in your design process? And I have to say the answer is usually yes, because everybody feels like 4 weeks is forever. But the truth is, it doesn't often happen that way. So what happens with us is we're about a week before that deadline, and we might communicate and say, I have some of your fabrics, none of your trims. I have your fabrics and your trims. I don't have a deposit. I have your fabrics. I have your trims. I have a deposit, but are we ready for final measure? And if the answer is, oh, well, my clients went to Brazil and the fabric is back ordered and I don't have an answer and the contractor hasn't put the crown in, I just remind them that's all fine. But just keep in mind and keep your client advised that May 1st is off the table, right? Up front. This is not happening not because of us, but because of you and whatever happened on your end. So I want you to do the same thing here. Lay it out. And I want you to say things like, hey, I really do want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. However, I've got other projects that need to start. And pretty much when you've got this worked out with him, let me know and I'll be back. Just know that from the time you call me to the time I jump back in, it could be 2 weeks, 2 months, whatever it is, whatever that time is that you think you would need to get back in. All right. This is a them problem, not a you problem. And for sure, sell it here. I will be back. I want this project. I'm happy to come back. I'm all in. But let them know that they are in the driver's seat. They are in control of controlling this guy. He is their responsibility. Okay? So I don't know what your pipeline looks like, but just whatever it is, don't be afraid to describe it and explain it. It is what it is. He's held them up for 5 months. If he surfaces in 2 weeks and you need another 2 weeks before you can get started, whatever, right? It's all about the way you explain it. All right, number 8. You say, I don't have the time or patience, frankly, to continue to chase this guy down. And I'm saying to you over and over again, it's not in your scope to chase him down. So don't do it and stop worrying about it. You keep your communication open with your client, but I would be done. I would never send him an email again. That's just me. I'd be like, I would totally communicate with my client. I'd say, I have emailed 14,000 times. These are the dates. These are the times. Totally want to do this project with you. When you rein this cowboy in, you let me know. That's all inside voice. You know how to say it like a professional, right? Number 9. I was going to reach out to the homeowners and have an honest and transparent conversation about my concerns, be blunt about the delays and cost increases they can expect if this thing continue like this. And so here's what I'm going to say, yes and qualified yes. It's definitely time for you to have some honest communication. But as I said earlier, it will not serve you to be blunt about how unprofessional he's acting. They need to come to this conclusion because they need to be the ones to break the contract with him or get him in line. And like I said before, people have a tendency to irrationally defend things that they know are not right when they are feeling insecure or uncomfortable, because at the heart of it, they know they have the responsibility for it. And that's the position your homeowner's in. Look, at the end of the day, they're very upset too. There is no question. Okay. So if you're the one to point this out in an honest conversation, hey, he's putting your project in jeopardy, they might just start defending him and making excuses for him. It happens all the time. People are people. But if in your honest communication you ask, what do you think you should do? Have you thought about a plan B for this? And stop talking. And notice, what do you think you should do? And do you have a plan B for building your house? And just sit there and see what they say. And I would actually be curious to hear what they would say to that. They may have a plan B. They may be wanting to fire him, but not sure if they can get another contractor. And I would say, do you have one that you can recommend in case they say, well, we want to fire him, but we don't know who else we're going to get to do it. I don't know what that matters because he's clearly not doing it, right? But the bottom line is if they say they have to continue with him, regardless of whether it's because they don't have the savviness or the conviction to have the hard conversation, or because some aspect of the contract, all right, that they have to say with him, once you hear if he is staying on, now you have to set the ground rules for going forward. So you want to say, do you, not the homeowners, I want to ask you, do you, and I don't mean the homeowners, need a different timeline, okay? And what is that? Think about this ahead of the conversation. So if you know that you want to go ahead with this, but say, for example, if he were to surface and communicate within the next 3 weeks, you can pick it right up. But if he were start to communicate, say, 10 weeks from now in your pipeline, you're like, well, then I would have to wait till, say, September, right? So my thing is, think about this. Think about this ahead of the conversation you have with the client, and then explain it to them. They need to know the consequences that they're going to experience by staying with them. And keep in mind, when you have this conversation with your homeowner, you may end up losing the job, right? Because they might not like, oh, well, I have to wait 4 weeks once I get him back on. I can't do that. You might, but that would be insanity in my mind if they did that after waiting 3 or 4 months for this guy to surface. But the thing is, what's the difference really? I know it's your dream job, but you'll have another dream job. You will. I mean, and is this a dream job? Like, is this really the way you want to work? Because I don't understand somebody that contracts with a builder and accepts this sort of behavior. So it just sounds like, when we talk about those red flags that we all saw in the beginning and we all ignored, this feels like one of those. I mean, I don't have all the details, but sort of feels like that. All right. And if they do rope him in, okay, what are the chances it lasts for the duration of the job? Right. So if they do rope them in and you do get started with them again, that is when you're going to have to reframe this, like I said before, and say, look, we really need to establish the communication and the approvals, and I need you to have a meeting and let's get all this stuff, together. Okay. I know that you are upset for your homeowner from a human perspective, and I get that. But from a professional perspective, there's nothing here that's on your plate. That's the thing. There's nothing here that's on your plate. You didn't hire him. They did. They are not managing him. They are not putting his feet to the fire. And if they are trying and doing everything they can and he's still not coming to the table, then it's their responsibility to sever the contract with him. All right? So, I don't know. I don't know if there's a lot there to really. Here's what it is. I don't think there's nothing there, as a matter of fact, to change the situation you're in as far as moving the project along. But the point is, what's in here is to change your perspective on what your responsibilities are and the ways to consider this in your mind. And you're not to take on no more would you take on the scope of 1 or 2 extra rooms that are not included within a project that you've established with somebody. It's not in your purview. It's not your responsibility to take on the scope of someone else that's not hired by you. All right. So I hope this was helpful. Would be interesting to know what has happened since then. And your perspective on hearing my thoughts. I'd be curious to know that. So reach out to me and let me know. Alrighty. And for the rest of you, rock star interior designers listening, if you have some ideas and suggestions for this colleague of yours, you can put it in LuAnn Nigara and Friends Facebook group. You can put some comments in the Instagram post for this particular episode, because I'd love to know some of your thoughts and feelings and solutions and ideas that you might have for your colleague. Alrighty. Thanks so much for listening today. Decide to be excellent. Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of LuAnn Nigara, Inc. If you want to know more about me, my books, or LuAnn University, go to LuAnnNigara.com. And if you are interested in having WindowWorks help you with your next window treatment or awning project in the New York, New Jersey metro area, go to WindowWorksNJ.com to learn more. Have an excellent day.